Hello, welcome to Gardener's World, and this is a special program because today we are going to not just celebrate winter in all its varied glories, but also celebrate the fact that we can get outside in our gardens and make ourselves feel a whole lot better. Winter is a time when most of us tend to instinctively retreat from the garden, and I've found certainly that even when it's raining, when it's dark or gloomy, if you put on some wellies, put on a waterproof, make yourself go out and do something, not only do you engage with the garden and engage with the natural world, but you do feel better. It really does do you good. And also, there are lots of things that you can do now to set the garden up so it will be at its very best in the coming months and seasons ahead. Now, coming up on today's program, Adam embraces the colours and forms of the winter border and shares a few tricks to make your own garden come alive at this time of year.
When we're adding scent to our gardens, where you put it is important.
Absolutely. Quite often you're smelling them before you're seeing them. So it's drawing you through the garden and you're excited of what you're going to find as you walk around.
We head to Sussex to meet a couple who have taken to the concept of a prairie style of gardening on a grand scale.
If I was a plant in this garden, I would probably be the giant Scottish thistle.
And why is that, Paul?
Because I'm a little bit prickly.
Ashley delves deep into the secrets of soil health at a spectacular wall garden in Cornwall.
It's a way of treating your kitchen waste with these specific microbes, and then basically pickles your food before you put it in the compost.
I'm guessing it's going to be pretty stinky.
Yeah, you might want to hold your nose.
We meet a terrarium enthusiast who is able to make gardens in the tiniest of spaces.
In this one, there are some tiny dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs, so that was a really fun project for me. It's just this miniature prehistoric world.
And in Devon, Joe discovers the wonder of multi-stem trees.
For me, the best way to add height, structure, and some drama in the garden is to plant a tree. But if you're planting a tree, why not add some living sculpture to your garden and plant a multi-stem?
It was a difficult summer for all wet-loving plants. And here in the damp garden, about half the water evaporated, and some plants had real problems. For example, the area I'm standing on, everything died, the whole lot. However, it has recovered, and now when I look at it, I realize this pond has changed. It's become something quite different to what I planned 15 years ago. I remember Joe helping me roll out the lining of the pond. And back then, I was quite clear it would be essentially decorative. Well, now it has become effectively a wildlife pond. I've let it become much looser. I tied it up a lot less. But one of the things it's certainly worth doing, if you want your water to be clear, during the winter months, scoop out as many fallen leaves as you possibly can, because they will decompose underwater and add a lot of nutrients. And nutrients are bad news to most aquatic plants that have adapted to very low levels of nutrition and will suffer. Now, whatever you take out is likely to have some form of life in it, even if you can't see it with your naked eye. So always put it on the edge of the pond for 24 hours. And that gives everything from beetles and larvae and newts the chance to slip back into the pond. And then after a day or two, you can collect it up and take it to the compost heap. I'm not going to go to town on it. If you want to encourage maximum wildlife, just accept a little bit of mess, accept some silt, accept the fact that it may well have weed over it at any point. Those things are good for wildlife, even if they don't fit your idea of what the perfect pond is. Come March, I know that this pond will be shimmering with tadpole activity, and the garden will resound to the croaking of frogs. So that is the price I'm prepared to pay. Now, we all want mild winter days to enjoy, but Adam went along to visit a garden on a really cold midwinter day to find that it was still looking superb.
It might be the coldest time of the year, but I still love wrapping up warm to see what shines out in the borders, even on the darkest days. Today I've come to look around the garden at Ashwood Nurseries in the West Midlands. It belongs to renowned plantsman John Massey, and in the winter I'm told it's a magical sight. Midsummer, you are absolutely surrounded with colour. Autumn calms down a little, and then winter. And I think so many of us disengage with our gardens too much. Yes, the colour palette is more limited, but if you start to look at the layers, the shapes, the bark, the scent, there is so much to be had. As a designer, I'm always looking for ways to bring the garden to life in the colder months. And I'm fascinated to see how John and his team have added some backbone to the winter garden, starting with the stars of the season, conifers. There's something that feels sort of wonderfully nostalgic about this. I've gone back to the 70s, but I mean that in a good way. You know, like putting on an old 70s vinyl and sitting there on your sofa and just dreaming about times gone by. And I think the other lovely thing here is that they're treating every single plant as an individual specimen. And they care about the pruning behind me. Look at that golden pine, but the canopy's been lifted. So you get this sort of glance through, so nothing's too heavy and overpowering. Then you go into darker greens, and then you're onto glaucer colours. So your eyes constantly bouncing about. You've got things like the cyclamen and your underplanting that develops as the year goes on. Nothing wrong with the 70s. Scent is such an important part of winter gardening, as many of the winter flowering shrubs rely on a powerful fragrance to attract insects. And gardener Chris Howe has grouped dozens of scented witch hazels to make the most of this seasonal strength. Chris.
Hi, Adam.
You wander down through there, the scent, it's incredible.
It's amazing. It hits you, doesn't it? As you walk down the drive in the mornings, coming into work, it just gets you straight away.
But what strikes me about this garden, right, the detail is incredible. How do you get the best out of these?
We do lots of pruning.
Yeah.
We don't want them to grow too fast.
Yeah.
We want to keep them quite tight and quite compact. And the best time to do that is from when they're young plants. What you should be doing is looking at the new growth from this year. You see that fresh, flexible new growth?
Yeah.
And the first two buds on that new growth are quite likely to produce flowers next year. So we will tip them back to those two buds.
Yeah.
And then hopefully they will flower.
See, that's a great little tip, isn't it? But they're not the only scent in here, are they? I saw the Saga Cocker up there and Daphne as well. So.
Daphne, Spring Beauty and Spring Herald we've got in there.
Yeah. And I like the idea that you come down the slope so that scent sits in. So I think when we're adding scent to our gardens, it's not just thinking about, oh, I want scent, but where you put it is important.
Absolutely. Quite often you're smelling them before you're seeing them. So it's drawing you through the garden and you're excited of what you're going to find as you walk around.
Chris is so right. every turn of this garden has a new secret, a joyful moment that just pulls you on. So much of the winter garden is about detail, but this is on a different level. The hellebores look incredible, and that's a great reason to grow things like this in the back garden. But you go out, you pick a few, you put them probably in a smaller bowl on the kitchen table in some cold water. You can't tell me you come down in the morning, you flip that kettle on. You just have a moment with your flowers, and that has got to be a great way to start any day. I love the living architecture scattered around the garden. These dogwoods have been twisted to show off the winter stems. And deep in the border, head gardener Nigel hopes is creating more natural winter structure. Supports for heleniums, which will add rich colour later in the summer.
It's just a way of making a support, giving you structure now, and the best thing is it just then blends into the background.
Yeah, but also interestingly, you've come across here and you're in a sweatshirt. I'm in a coat because I was standing around, but straight away, you're doing something.
Yeah.
And I feel a bit warmer.
Yeah, that's it. And it's therapeutic, I think. You just get carried away with weaving them together. The real trial is to try and do it without actually having to use a pair of secateurs to cut away any waste or anything that's broken. I mean,
well, which is handy really, because I haven't actually got a pair with me. So I'll tell you what, Nigel, interestingly, in this garden, because winter's really thought about, the shapes, the forms look absolutely incredible, you know?
I think a lot of people always say about putting their gardens to bed.
Yeah, I know.
And I think I hate that phrase because
I do.
It feels like if you've got a room in your house, it's like closing the door and then not going in it for 4 or 5 months, and you think, well, that's a waste of your space. Your garden is an extension of your house and your property. It's another room.
You are talking to the converted.
I think that's starting to look really good. So,
I'm smiling, mate.
Appreciate the help. I think you might pass and we'll get you to do some more if you want.
A little certificate.
Yeah, that's it.
Bless you. A lovely little courtyard area close to the house, but it more encapsulates what we've been talking about, that evergreen structure, the bark colour, but also that ground cover, pops of colour, things like the cyclamen and the hellebores. But I think today's been a great reminder that winter in the garden can be quite a special thing. But I think more than anything, tomorrow morning, cup of tea, cup of coffee, go and have a wander around that garden and maybe just have a look at it with fresh eyes.
Personally, I really love all the shades of green that we saw there, and which you can have in the winter garden, and the way that the structure of the garden suddenly comes out, and even on the greyest day, it can be magnificent. But whatever the weather, one of the things I love about winter is coming into the potting shed, getting cosy, and sowing seeds, and they include chillies. The key thing about chillies is that they are slow. They're slow to germinate. They're slow to grow as seedlings, and they take a while to really kick off. And what you're looking for are big plants, and then you get lots of fruit. You really want to be as big as possible by about July, and that means starting in January. So, have a seed compost. And the basic thing about a seed compost, as opposed to if you're potting something up, is it doesn't need a lot of nutrition. What it needs is a nice open structure, peat-free. This is coir base, which I mix with vermiculite and leaf mould. A little bit of garden compost in there too, and then choose your seeds. Now, if you've never grown chillies before, there are a couple that I would recommend starting with. If you like a little bit of heat, jalapenos are really good. They look great. They're sort of medium heat and a good starting point. So I always grow some jalapenos. And the other one that I've grown to love are padron chilies. Now these, of course, are the Spanish ones, and you fry them very, very quickly. You eat them young, and they're absolutely delicious. If you let them go and become red, then they become hot. And the great thing is that these will grow happily outside. So I'm going to sow some padron chilies. So the thing to remember is each one of these little seeds is potentially a strong plant. And I found that a sort of dozen plants is enough for us. That will produce hundreds of fruits. There we go. Right, we'll pop that back in. Now what I always do is just gently press them down. The reason for doing that is you're making really good contact between the seed and the growing medium, which is important for germination, and then cover them over lightly. Now, I use vermiculite, but a little bit of compost would do. Just sprinkle it over the top. Vermiculite lets moisture through and it doesn't cap. And capping is when you get a bit of a crust on the top of a seed tray if the top dries out. Now label. These now should be watered and then, and this is critical, put somewhere warm. They need about 20 degrees to germinate and a steady 20. So it's no good if it gets cool at night. And the minute that the seedlings appear, you want to make sure they have maximum light. Chilies need heat and light, and both together to grow. And if you can give them that, they're worth it. I love growing them because not only are they delicious, they store well, and also they look great. Now, having said earlier that I love winter structure, we're going to visit a garden in Henfield in West Sussex, which strips away most structure, but replaces it with a magnificent open prairie of plants.
From autumn onwards, a lot of people think that their gardens are all over. But for us, the garden is really just coming to its absolute zenith. Amazing structures, seed heads, the height of the big grasses. This is why we are totally wedded to the naturalistic style.
Lars, Vigo, come on. Good boys. I'm Paul.
And I'm Pauline.
And together we have created the Sussex Prairie Garden.
A very wild piece of garden in the heart of the Sussex Weald.
The whole garden is about 8 acres.
We planted the garden in May 2008. I got into gardening because of Paul, meeting the man of my dreams in France. How romantic was that?
I was a gardener for the Wargraves and the Somme, and Pauline had her pick of all the gardeners.
I did.
It chose me.
I did.
I think the prairie style is a halfway house between wildflower meadow and a garden as we understand it.
A more managed space, you
Yeah,
mean, really.
yeah. Rather than having highly bred plants like maybe dahlias and chrysanthemums, the plants that are more naturalistic tend to have lots of small flowers rather than one big over-the-top flower, and they bear a close resemblance to their wild cousins.
Come,
Let's
Vigo,
go.
come on.
This is Persicaria orientalis. Even though it's 6 feet tall, it's actually an annual. It's got incredible deep pink pendulous flowers. It gives you height and what you might call an accent plant. So if you could have 3 or 4 of these monsters spaced around the garden, it leads your eye around the border. Wind movement is such an important thing in the naturalistic garden. That's why about 1/3 of all plants are grasses. This one is one of my favourites. It's Panicum raybrown. The fluffy flowers just give a really soft, focused feel to the whole border. It's great to plant a strong colour behind it so that as you stand somewhere else, you look through the veil of the panicum at the stronger colours. From April onwards, we see the first signs of life in the garden.
Acid yellow colours come first of all, and that's always so hopeful for spring, that zing of colour.
Summer's peak colour.
It's sort of like a painting in motion, isn't it? The way the colours come in.
Autumn's the season of asters and flowering grasses.
Yeah, so it's the time of big things, the monster time, isn't it, really? I love it because that's when you can really feel immersed in the garden. In amongst all this wonderful stuff, I'm having to fight my way through to get through the border.
And then you'll have your monochrome winter garden, black and white.
It's just so sculpturally interesting.
They have to earn their place by not just looking like amazing in flower, they have to look sculptural in death.
Is death, but is death...
Death becomes it.
Death becomes it.
This is a little shrub called Cephalanthus occidentalis, I think from North American swamps. It's got lovely white flowers, like a Sputnik with white spikes. One of the lovely things about the stems is the dark reddish brown, which can also be seen in the seed heads. Eventually over winter they'll turn black when the seed is ripe and ready to fall. I think we're all a bit obsessed with being neat and tidy, so I think be a bit less neat, a bit less tidy, as well as extending your season. I think it's generally better for wildlife, especially for things like little birds eating from the seed heads of the plants. Overwintering insects have got somewhere to nest and hide themselves away from the winter weather. Our main maintenance is to try and do as much work in late winter and spring. We cut down the plants, and that allows you to see any perennial weeds. We dig them out, and then we add a 15 centimetre thick layer of mulch.
Yeah. Not only is it smothering any weeds, because we're on such heavy clay soil here, it really retains the water, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also the compost, at the end of 1 year, the worms have brought it into the ground. So it's like the fashionable no-dig garden.
Yeah.
But for the ordinary gardener, the same principles would allow you to sit back and relax in your garden rather than spend all summer weeding and working.
Come on, good dogs. When we created this garden, we chose to plant in big blocks to give maximum impact. We started off with about 600 or so different varieties. Like a good marriage, of course, you need to have plants that work together and that look good against each other. So we set up these combinations of plants, or dream partnerships, really.
Looking at how they perform during the changing seasons.
Sort of thinking like a Rubik's Cube, really, of relationships.
Plants in time and space. This lovely Phlomis russelliana. This has got yellow flowers in the early summer. It's got these lovely candelabra forms in the autumn. And by the time you get to midwinter, it's black and it's contrasting with the silvery white grass. And we have autumn colour coming from the asters, which are just absolutely vital, I think, for late colour in the garden. If I was a plant in this garden, I would probably be the giant Scottish thistle.
And why is that, Paul?
Because I'm a little bit prickly.
But very dynamic.
But what would you be, Pauline?
What would I be? I would have to be a Molinia transparent. Big, beautiful, but you can see right through me.
I think we feel that we have created our magnum opus.
Oh, stop it. That just sounds so pompous. I mean, we've created a beautiful, beautiful garden and love sharing it with other people. And it's become probably more than we ever imagined it possibly could be.
Good boy. lots of good things about prairie planting, but I think the best thing, for me anyway, is on a clear, cold, frosty winter's day, the way that you have all the seed heads and the grasses and the stems rimed with frost and yet standing silhouetted against a bright blue sky is absolutely beautiful. Now, I've had this juniper in a pot for the last couple of years. This is Juniper Blue Star. Last year I had it planted up with violas and I liked it so much. I thought you can't improve on that. And rather than thinking, okay, this year I'll do something different, I'm going to repeat exactly that because, you know, when something's working, don't change it. Violas, pansies, violets, all are really good winter flowers. Now what I have here is a variety called Rocky Viola Blue. I think these are completely charming. And I intend to plant them around the juniper. Now, before I do that, because this has been in here for 2 years, I'm just going to scrape away some of the topsoil. You cannot expect soil to keep giving nutrients all the time. Just loosen it a bit, like that, and then scoop out some topsoil. I'm going to replace it with fresh compost. I've got a coir-based compost mixed in with sieved garden compost, sieved leaf mould, and a little bit of perlite. Now, we're ready, and this is really easy because these are so tough and so adaptable. Just pop them in round the edge. You don't have to hold back here. Put in plenty. They have a very fibrous root, which means that they're very forgiving. You can push them in and squeeze them into places and the roots will not suffer. Right. That looks slightly bedraggled now, but I'll water that in and I guarantee in a couple of weeks' time, these will be shimmering with these lovely mauvey, purpley flowers touched with a little bit of yellow and black, and they will go on shimmering all winter, all spring, and well into the summer. Now, talking about summer, in June, Ashley went to Cornwall. And he went to visit a garden in Padstow, a wall garden, where they raise wonderful plants, but also take great care to look after wonderful soil.
It's not often I get the opportunity to leave London and get down to the coast, so some sea air and a visit to a beautiful garden in Cornwall had to be the recipe for a perfect day. Especially as this place has taken the importance of soil health to the next level.
Looking around this garden, to me, it is full of abundance. Not only are there beautiful flowers spilling over the pathways, but it's also humming with bees. You can literally hear it around you.
I have come to Prairie Walled Garden in Padstow. It's been a garden for over a century, growing fruit, veg and cut flowers for the big house and the surrounding village. But in the 80s, the gates were closed, dominant weeds took over, and the soil's vitality waned. Then new owners came in 2019, and today this coastal garden is bursting with life. Self-seeders drift along the steep banks. The borders are full and lush. But after those years of neglect, the soil here needed real rejuvenation. Head gardener Emma Resterick has had to put in a lot of work.
How did this begin? How do I create the same thing?
Well, in the beginning, we were very no-dig, so we covered everything with cardboard and then green waste compost, and over time, everything is sort of spread and self-seeded around.
And it creates that diversity, and that's good for resilience, isn't it?
Yeah, totally, because if you've got like lots of different food groups with their roots going into the soil, then they're feeding lots and lots of different microbes within the ground, and then also you get loads of different pollinators and wildlife as well above ground.
And Emma has got a lot of other strategies designed to enrich the system.
I'm just smashing up some charcoal.
Okay.
The idea is that you add it to the compost. It sort of increases the microbial diversity and also the water holding capacity, which is really important. We also treat our kitchen waste with bokashi. Basically, it's a way of treating your kitchen waste with these specific microbes, and it basically pickles your food before you you put it in the compost.
Oh, let's have a look.
Yeah. I got it right here.
Wow. I'm guessing it's gonna be pretty stinky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might want to hold your nose.
Okay. So this is literally like fermented food,
Yeah.
is it?
And it does produce this liquid as well, which you can also use as plant feed, or I use it when I'm sowing seeds to help with germination.
Since you've been using this technique, have you noticed any difference in the plants you're growing in the garden?
Yeah, massively. The plants are generally healthier. Also, before I started using Bokashi, I really struggled with Icelandic poppies. They're like my nemesis. They used to all damp off. I've killed thousands of them, but now they're absolutely fine. Like, I can grow them and they're really resilient, and I don't have to worry about those diseases anymore.
By nurturing and caring for the soil, Emma and her gardening soulmate, owner Martha Prideaux, are creating a living garden with health at its heart. But there are still some areas of compaction which are prone to weeds, and to treat these, Emma uses an old technique. This will be my first go at broad forking.
It's a good workout. So would you call this no dig, or is this digging, or the half and half thing?
It's definitely, I think in the States they call it tillage rather than dig. I think it's like it gets called minimum tilling.
Okay.
So it's like low intervention. The problems that we've found is that where the ground is really compacted, we've had some issues with bindweed, where the soil structure's collapsed, and therefore there's like a real proliferation of bindweed. And so we're just breaking it up with the broad fork, basically.
Once we've completed this, what's next? We're mulching it? What's happening?
Yeah, we'll mulch the bed with compost that we've made, and then plant the dahlias in. And then I think actually on top of that, I'll probably sow some like low-growing green manures just to help cover the soil whilst the dahlias become established.
Green manures, also called cover crops, are simply plants grown and then cut back and left to rot down, or dug into the soil to increase fertility. Here at Prideaux, Emma uses buckwheat, clover and phacelia.
Also helps feed the dahlia tubers at the same time, which is quite handy, so.
Emma and Martha's mission to optimise the health of the garden has been backed up by science. Hannah Jones from an organisation called Farm Carbon Toolkit has been regularly on hand to offer advice and analysis.
This is some soil that is on the journey up. It's been improved by all the work that Emma and Martha do. There's a whole range of techniques that they've used. The first one is they've used a very rich compost, a good compost, a thick layer of compost. And probably the most important aspect, which you'll have picked up from walking around this beautiful garden, is it's actually keeping the soil covered. The soil health is driven by living plant roots. Plant roots produce lots of sort of sugars and complex compounds which feed the soil biology, and that's what feeds this whole ecosystem of soil life.
There's been a historic problem with bindweed in this garden, and I know that they were using the broad fork to try and tackle that. How does that help?
That's a great question. Bindweed, from a lot of the older books, will indicate that it's soils that have got a poor soil structure. So the soils are slightly collapsed. You need to open up that soil and let it breathe. And the bindweed will ultimately lose its competitive advantage because other plants thrive better on those conditions. I'll show you some soil from an area where the broad fork hasn't been used and it is compacted. And you can see that how well the bindweed is obviously making it's loving those conditions. And when you open it, the soils are quite angular. And then if you compare this to the soil that we've got just here, you can see the difference.
Really crumbly.
With the composting, the broad forking, and adding all those living roots, we can go from this one to this one.
Emma being Emma, she's busy concocting more interventions. Nutrient-rich local seaweed makes a good feed when mixed with molasses. When submerged inside a vinegar, these oyster shells release calcium, useful for plants, while the vinegar is neutralized. Processes which, in this wonderful garden, are really paying dividends.
It has been so special to be here today. I've learnt a lot, but I've just enjoyed being in this environment. It's felt so relaxing. You can see in the flowers that it produces these amazing blooms. The evidence is here.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so refreshing to see you working in a garden in this way with nature and not against it. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I do love it when I see people so enthusiastically and brilliantly talking about soil and compost and how to improve it and working with it. And all of that is what makes a good garden. We love what grows above ground, but it's only as good as what's underneath. And it doesn't matter what kind of garden you have, where you garden, how you garden, what you do. Compost is at the heart of a healthy, good garden. Now, this is compost straight out of the compost heap, the end of the process. Quite nice, I have to say. It's worked well. Now, there are bits in it, which is fine when you're spreading it on the ground for vegetables or around plants, but not so good when you're using it for potting compost, which is where this contraption comes in. That is for what I chuck away. And this is a sieve. Now, when I was a child, one of the first garden jobs I ever had was sieving compost, and it was such hard work. And so it's never really left me. It's never been my favourite job. So this contraption works pretty well. Now, we've got two sieves. There's a fine one, which I'm going to take off, and a coarser one. And all you do is shovel some compost in, like that. And then rock it backwards and forwards. You can see that what we're left with is a surprising amount of sort of bark and twigs and the odd stone. That's what we don't want in the potting mix, so just empty that out. But even that isn't waste. I spread that underneath the hedgerows. So they act as a very rough mulch, and that will work into the soil eventually. Almost everything we produce gets composted. The only things we don't do is meat of any kind, any vegetables that have been cooked, any sort of pure oil, and also anything that's prickly. But almost anything else, and what you're always looking for is this perfect combination of brown and green material, that's carbon and nitrogen. But there is no one true way, so whatever you've got, try it. Give it a go. If it's too wet, add more dry material. If it's too dry, maybe add a bit more wet. Keep turning it, and you will make compost. And this compost here has gone from absolutely raw material, kitchen and garden waste, to this in 6 months. Now, in the middle of winter, when the weather is really bad, even the most brave-hearted gardener sometimes has to accept that any activity is going to be indoors. But that shouldn't stop you. There are really fascinating aspects of horticulture that do take place indoors, as we discovered when we visited a gardener in East London.
Whatever space you have, whatever budget, I think it's really important that we all have access to a garden. My name is Ben Yule, and I make terrariums, which are basically little gardens that fit in the palm of your hand. I just think there's something very magical about terrarium building. It's a really nice form of escapism. There's just something about creating a miniature world. Something geometric like this, which has got some nice orchids inside. That's sort of like this miniature forest floor. In this one, there are some tiny dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs, so like that was a really fun project for me. Yeah, it's just this miniature prehistoric world. When I was young, I grew up in a very working class area. We had a concrete yard. I remember my mother tried to grow some ivy and just failed, so I don't come from a family of gardeners. And my only experience with horticulture was putting a bean into a plastic cup. I live in London. We have a small one-bed flat. I've had to move 4 times in the last 4 years. You can put all this effort into creating a garden, and you just have to leave it when you move house. But with the terrariums, I've been able to bring them on every single house move with me. I really like using unusual containers. So this is just a lava lamp, but it forms a perfect terrarium because it traps humidity, it lets light through. Of course, we don't turn the light on because it would cook everything. We have a honey bottle here. Even this sweet box, flipped it upside down, put some mosses in there and a tiny little saxifraga. And you'll never look at the spice jar in a supermarket in the same way again. I had a really lovely childhood up until about the age of 8. I unfortunately lost my dad when I was 8 and then my brother when I was 12. I completely failed school and fell into addiction, and to be honest, life was looking very bleak for me. But it was really when I discovered horticulture at 23, it really kick-started my life. The first terrarium I ever made was in a large, cheap vase, and it lasted about 3 weeks. So there are 3 really important things to get right. 1 is that you use the correct soil. 2 is that you don't overwater it. And 3 is that you don't sit it in direct sun for prolonged periods. This is pre-bought terrarium soil made up of sphagnum moss, coir, which is like a coconut husk. It's got some worm castings, charcoal, and what looks like orchid bark. We need to be a bit careful around where we get our moss from. We shouldn't go out into the woods and take mosses, but you can get moss from sustainable sources. This is Akadama, and it's the first of 3 bonsai soils I'm going to add. And ever since I started adding bonsai soil to my terrariums, the success rate went up, so I'm going to continue doing that. So Akadama is like a fired clay, and it has that water-retentive yet well-draining quality, which is so desirable in terrarium soil. Next is Kyodama. It has very similar properties. And finally, this is lava rock. Again, very porous. There's just no way that's going to become soggy and saturated. And this is a little design tip. I arrange it on a gradient. So it's higher at the back and lower at the front. And the reason for this is so more surface area is visible from the front. Now, the moss. There's just something really fascinating about moss. This is Lycobrium glaucum. It's also known as bun moss. It's probably the most widely used moss in terrariums. I'm going to break it into smaller pieces. I like to think of this area at the front as like the prime real estate of the terrarium, and that's where I put the prettiest looking plants. I love that sound. You can plant individual tufts just like that, but I'm not that patient. But this one here is Dicranum scoparium, and it's known as mood moss. From a design perspective, it gives you texture, and it's a bit taller. The taller plants and mosses will put at the back. So it is the same process as planting a border in a garden. Like I'm thinking about, you know, planting in odd numbers, trying to avoid symmetry. But I want to stress there's no right or wrong. Like, it really is just about, you know, having fun. One final moss species, Viridum tamariscanum. It kind of looks like a conifer, and it's got really nice texture to it. You can see it's almost like a feather. So I'm just going to put a few pieces in some of the gaps. Again, it just breaks up that uniformity. Is that a word? Uniformity. The first plant I'm going to use is a very common house plant, Peperomia prostrata. It's known as string of turtles, and you can see why. And then I'm going to cut just above a leaf node. And what I'm left with is a rootless cutting. Now I'm simply just going to rest it on top, and in a very short while, it will push roots through the moss and into the soil. The next plant is going to be this saxifraga. You don't often see plants like that beautiful. It's got that amazing colour, it's got that amazing veining on the leaves, and it stays that small and that's a very desirable trait for a terrarium plant. This is Ficus thunbergii, common name being the oak leaf fig. It's probably the quintessential terrarium plant. It's small, slow growing, and looks wonderful. Someone once told me, a terrarium shouldn't really look that great on the day it's planted. It's kind of like a garden, right? Like a garden almost looks at its worst on the day it's planted, but then in a year and 2 years, it really starts to grow in. And it's kind of the same with a terrarium, just on a much smaller scale. Okay, I'm happy with that.
I do think that anything that gets people into gardening and growing things is to be celebrated and encouraged. Now, at this time of year, any houseplants you've had outside have been brought in, and your houseplants have to be looked after very differently in winter than summer. And the first thing, and by far and away the most important thing, is don't overwater. Far more houseplants die of too much water than too little. A good rule of thumb is look at it. If it's drooping in any way, if it looks as though it needs water, then it probably does. But if the compost is at all wet, and the plant is looking reasonably okay, for goodness sake, don't water it. It doesn't need it. Now, these aeoniums, for example, which are not hardy, they need the protection of the greenhouse, and we have a heater in here keeping it above 5 degrees. I water them maybe once in February, and then start to water them again at the beginning of April. And just remember that succulents have evolved to store moisture in their leaves. They will take it up through their roots, store it in their leaves, and then draw upon it. So hold back on the water, but what I do is use a sprayer. And I just mist the air. With the aeoniums, not every day by any means, but maybe once or twice a week. And it just gives them a little bit of humidity on the leaves, which they do like and they do respond to. And that's enough. The exception to that are cacti. They need bright sunshine so that they can go on a windowsill, say a south-facing windowsill that doesn't have a radiator underneath it, and they'll survive. And in general, with houseplants, make sure there's some ventilation. Just because it's winter, it doesn't mean to say they're like a stuffy, airless environment. Keep the roots fairly dry, but don't let the air dry out too much. Now, to go from looking after houseplants indoors in the middle of winter to trees growing outside in full leaf in the middle of summer. Because Joe has been down to Stoke Gabriel in Devon to visit a nursery that is growing trees with a difference.
For me, the best way to add height, structure, and some drama in the garden is to plant a tree. And of course, they're great for wildlife, they have year-round interest, and they can create shade and privacy beneath too. But if you're planting a tree, why not add some living sculpture to your garden and plant a multi-stem?
Just a few miles from the Devon coastline, surrounded by rolling hills, is a tree nursery specialising in multi-stem trees and shrubs. They grow thousands. I'm talking over 12,000 of them. At the helm is Philip Nieuwoud. He's a master at nurturing and pruning.
20 years ago, I bought a field in Devon and bought small trees and a wheelbarrow and a spade. That's how it started.
Why multi-stem trees?
Because multi-stem trees are just that little bit more creative and sculptural.
The minute you put one in a garden, you've got something of character, voluminous, it holds itself, holds a space around it, almost like a sort of a piece of art in an art gallery somehow.
If you grow something very beautiful, people go, oh wow, that's something different.
So what age are you putting these in the ground to start with?
We buy them in about sort of 3 or 4 years old. And it's all about giving them the best start in life for us, to having that good balance between a lovely crown and a really good root system. Because if you don't have a happy root system, you don't have a happy tree.
I think it's just fabulous what Philip's doing here and has developed over the last 20 years, because he really understands how these trees grow and how to create these wonderful shapes out of multi-stems.
Pruning any tree can be quite daunting, so I'm intrigued to find out what Philip's mantra is for a multi-stem.
Pruning. It scares the hell out of some people. It really does. You know, and some people don't know where to start, and sadly, other people don't know when to stop.
Here we've got a shrub. It's called Viburnum burgwoodii. And first I will walk around, because that's really important. It's not to just look from one angle.
Yeah.
So I look firstly at the canopy and where do I want to crown lift in order to start showing a bit more of the stem structure.
With a multi-stem, you want to see the stems.
By lifting up the canopy, you reveal that beautiful zigzaggy kind of...
It's not topiary. We're not clipping it to create this dense shape. You're making this multi-stem form.
So I am going to slowly create a line for myself, and then everything below that line, I'm going to take off.
You're mainly doing this for the aesthetics, I get that, but also for the health of the plant.
It's actually really good to create a really open canopy, so with air movement, a lot of the sort of fungus and stuff really don't like that.
Yeah.
There's one branch here that's going to make a massive difference.
You
bring
mean
your
that one there?
secateurs.
So I'll go in about there.
That's perfect.
So it can heal over. Oh yeah, it looks so much better already.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other magic that we do, that wound there. If you take a little bit of soil from the base of the tree, the microorganisms in the soil is believed to help with the process. So
Okay.
because there's a little bit of sap there, so it sticks nicely. You want to create a nice rounded canopy. So I go over and everything that is below that line, I take off. So you have the middle point of the tree, and there's a stick, and you have a bit of invisible string that you keep, but you have to keep it tight. And everything in front of you, you just cut off.
Gotcha.
And as you can see, I'm holding it.
Well, I can see that. I wouldn't want to get involved because how long's a piece of invisible string, right? So when do you do most of your pruning?
We don't prune in spring because the sap just flows too fast. So we do all our pruning sort of from late May until about October, because they can seal the wounds quicker. In the winter, we don't really do any of our pruning because the trees are completely dormant, especially the deciduous trees.
That looks great, Philip. Got to say.
Well, if I didn't have your help, I don't think it would have turned out this beautiful.
No, but I mean, there's three tips. There's raising the crown, there's taking out the dead and the crossing and, you know, making it congested, and then the invisible string. I love it.
If you just take a little bit of effort and try and create something nice, then you can have something that you will never be able to afford if you go and buy it from, you know, some really big nurseries, because, you know, that's something really special.
Carrying out pruning on your multi-stem tree in its first 5 years really helps determine its future shape and structure. In older trees like these, it can be done to keep them a specific size.
Lovely hornbeams, aren't they? Which one are we doing? I like
one here.
Oh, good. I was going to say this is my favourite. How old is this tree then?
So this tree's about 14, 15 years old. Okay. So every time we cut the canopy back, it just becomes nice and thick.
You've got to keep it to a manageable height.
If you've got it in a space where you want to control the size of it, because the hornbeam will grow quite big if you let it. We do them with these shears because when you use a mechanical hedge trimmer, you get that like a perfect rounded, and that's very much a topiary look.
Yeah, you are a purist, aren't you?
When you start looking at your trees like this, I think you become more connected with them, and that can only be a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that means you notice your trees more, and you start really appreciating the shape of them.
Yeah, it's looking lovely. Now, a lot of us have trees already in our gardens or shrubs that have a propensity to be multi-stem. If you start pruning them, you're taking a few leaves off here and there, you might see a multi-stem shape underneath. Things like maple, cornus, amelanchias, and they're already branching. And soon they could be something like one of these. So have you ever seen some sort of random tree in someone's garden and just thought, oh yeah, I know, I'll just tweak it?
I have knocked on people's doors and said, do you mind if I just quickly cut this branch off?
I think what Philip is doing here is really valuable to all of us, and there are lessons to be learned that we can all use in our own gardens to make sure that our trees reach their full potential.
The thing I love about multi-stem trees, or shrubs for that matter, is the way they frame things. They focus your attention as well as looking good in their own way. But if you use them as a frame for the garden or even looking out to the countryside beyond, they work brilliantly. Would you believe it if I told you I sat down here without any dogs and they've descended upon me? And I guess dogs and gardens are inseparable for me. I know we talk an awful lot about the best way to do things and the right time, and we visit gardens which are looking fantastic in all their many different ways. But maybe we don't talk enough about what we want from the garden, the reason why we garden. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's giant veg or the best collection of one plant, or whether you're growing grasses or herbaceous plants or trees, whatever it is. Find what you love, find what really excites you in the garden and follow it. Not only is it great for you, but I think it'll be good for the garden too. I think you'll have a better garden as a result. Anyway, it's a thought, because that's it for today. I will see you back here at Longmeadow next time. So until then, bye-bye.